Your alarm goes off on Sunday morning. You reach over, look at the time, and just turn it off. The bed is warm. You're tired. And honestly, church feels like a lot right now. So you stay. You tell yourself it's just one Sunday. Not a big deal. But later that afternoon, a quiet question shows up in the back of your mind. Did that actually matter? Did I just do something wrong? Or is this really not a big deal? Here's what that Sunday probably looked like. You made coffee. You opened your phone. Maybe you watched something, scrolled for a while, felt a little lazy, but also kind of okay about it. The morning went by fast. By afternoon, you were busy with something else. Life moved on. But then, that feeling came. Hard to name exactly. Not guilt exactly. More like a slight unease. Like you left something undone. You told yourself, I'll go next week. And you meant it. You probably still mean it. This moment, this exact feeling, is incredibly common. Millions of Christians have sat right where you're sitting, and most of them didn't know what to do with it either. So let's actually talk about it. Honestly, without judgment. Here's what goes through people's minds when they skip church. Is this a sin? Am I breaking a commandment? Is God disappointed in me right now? Or on the other end, does any of this even matter? Can't I just pray at home? Why does showing up to a building have anything to do with my relationship with God? Both of those reactions are real. Both are worth taking seriously, because there's something important in the tension between them. Skipping church doesn't feel like robbing a bank, but something still feels off, and that feeling is worth paying attention to. So what does the Bible actually say about this? Let's go to the actual text. Hebrews 10:25 is one of the clearest verses on this subject. It says, "Do not neglect meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encourage one another." Notice what it says. Don't neglect it. Not as a harsh command, but as a warning, because someone, somewhere, was already skipping, and the writer of Hebrews saw where it was leading. Then there's Acts 2:42. The early church, people who had just come to faith in Jesus, devoted themselves to fellowship. That word devoted is strong. It means consistent, committed, regular, not occasional, not when they felt like it. And then Jesus himself, in Matthew 18:20 says, "Where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I am with them." Read that again. God shows up where people gather together. That's not just a nice metaphor. That's a promise about something that happens in community, something that can't happen when you're alone on a couch. Church isn't just a building. It's not a ritual or a habit from the 1950s. It's the place where believers sharpen each other, carry each other's weight, and encounter God in a way that's different from private prayer. Community does something that solitude cannot, and the Bible takes that seriously. Now, here's where we have to be honest about both sides. Missing one Sunday is not the end of your faith. God is not sitting in heaven with a clipboard, marking you absent and docking your score. If you were sick, exhausted, dealing with a family emergency, traveling, life happens. One missed Sunday does not define your walk with God. Grace is real, and God knows your heart. But here's the other side. Consistently avoiding church is a different matter. When you drift away from community, slowly, gradually, always with a good reason, something starts to happen. Your faith gets quieter. Your convictions blur a little. The things that once moved you stop moving you as much. Isolation does that. Not overnight, but steadily. Faith was never designed to survive entirely alone. The early church knew that. That's why they gathered. Not because the building was special, but because being with other believers kept them sharp, honest, and alive in their faith. One missed Sunday. Probably fine. A pattern of avoiding church. That's worth paying attention to. There are 2 ways people get this wrong, and they're opposites. The first mistake is turning church into a burden, treating it like a law to keep, a box to check, a performance for God or other people. When church becomes about obligation and appearance, it loses meaning fast, and people eventually walk away, not from God, but from the exhaustion of a religion that feels like work. The second mistake is dismissing it entirely, convincing yourself that you're spiritual enough on your own, that you don't need other people, that Sunday morning YouTube sermons are basically the same thing. They're not. Both extremes miss the point. Church isn't meant to be a burden, and it isn't meant to be optional either. It's meant to be a living part of your relationship with God. So what do you actually do with this? First, show up even when you don't feel like it. Feelings are not always reliable guides. Some of the most meaningful moments people experience in church happen on the Sundays they almost didn't go. Second, build consistency, not perfection. You don't need a flawless attendance record. You need a pattern that shows up in your life, once a week, regularly, with intention. Third, change how you think about it. Church isn't something you do for God like paying dues. It's part of how your relationship with Him grows. You go the same way you spend time with someone you love, not out of obligation, but because it matters. If your current church isn't feeding you, that's a real conversation worth having. Find one that does. But don't let a bad experience become a permanent exit. And if you've been away for a while, there's no dramatic comeback required. You just go back. Next Sunday. That's it. Here's the truth about this morning. Skipping once may not seem like much, and maybe it wasn't, but what you repeat shapes who you become. God is not after your attendance. He's after your heart, and your heart is shaped slowly, over time, by what you consistently choose. When you keep choosing community, accountability, and showing up, even imperfectly, something grows in you that doesn't grow any other way. When you keep choosing the bed, the phone, and the quiet Sunday alone, something else happens. Not all at once, just gradually. So the question isn't really whether you sinned this morning. The question is, what kind of person do you want to be a year from now? Because the answer to that question is built one Sunday at a time.